You ever see a man stand in front of a 20-ton tactical supply truck like he's auditioning to be the next Captain America? Because I did. And let me tell you, his name wasn't Steve Rogers. It was Chadwick. And he wasn't holding a vibranium shield. Just a clipboard. A neon vest. And the kind of misplaced confidence that only a freshly hired HOA security officer could possibly possess. It all began just after dawn in Sierra Pines. A gated suburban neighborhood nestled at the edge of a forest preserve, quiet, orderly, and absolutely obsessed with its landscaping rules. The kind of place where homeowners got fined for putting out trash bins 5 minutes too early. I'd been making weekly deliveries there for 6 months without incident. My company, Cole Tactical Logistics, held a federal contract with the National Guard. That morning, our manifest included encrypted radios, collapsible water tanks, and ration packs for an upcoming disaster preparedness drill. And that's when Chadwick happened. I was sipping my coffee in the dispatch office when Brett, my lead driver, called in from the front gate. Boss. His voice crackled over the comms. We got a situation. I frowned. What kind of situation? There's a guy out here in a vest, says he's with the HOA. He's standing in front of the truck. Like, arms out. Trying to block it. I almost choked on my drink. He's blocking the truck. Yep. Says we're violating something called Resolution 17.3b and he's got a laminated sign and everything. I cursed under my breath, grabbed my clipboard, and jumped into my Jeep. The neighborhood was only 10 minutes away, but I drove like it was 5. As I pulled up, I saw Brett's convoy of 3 matte gray supply trucks idling at the gate. Hazard lights blinking in the soft morning fog. And there he was, Chadwick, mid-40s. Wiry, with a crew cut and the swagger of a man who once failed a community college criminal justice course and never quite recovered. He stood with his legs wide apart, hands on his hips, glaring up at the massive front grille of the lead truck like it had insulted his mother. I parked beside Brett's cab and stepped out. Morning, I said, trying to keep it civil. He turned toward me with a smirk and tapped his badge. Yes. A badge that reads Sierra Pines HOA Security Enforcement. The logo was printed in Comic Sans. These vehicles are not on the approved entry list, Chadwick declared. Clipboard raised like it was a warrant. Per HOA regulation. You'll need to turn around. I stared at him. You do realize you're blocking a National Guard convoy carrying federally authorized equipment? He didn't blink. Doesn't matter. No prior notice. No oversized vehicle permit. No entry. Brett leaned out the truck window and muttered. I could probably idle forward. He looks like he'd flinch. I held up a hand. No. We're not making CNN because we ran over a wannabe mall cop. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made a call. And yes, of course her name was Karen. Karen Dubrow. HOA president. Queen of passive aggression and dictator of shrub height. Her voice came through the phone with that signature tone, like a yoga instructor who just found out her smoothie wasn't organic. Mr. Cole, she said, before I could even speak. If your drivers can't follow basic community protocol, perhaps your deliveries should be made elsewhere. I tried to stay calm. Karen, you're currently obstructing a federally sanctioned logistics operation. That's not just an HOA issue, it's a legal one. She chuckled. Oh. That chuckle. You people think you're above the rules. Maybe this will teach you not to be so entitled. And with that, she hung up. Chadwick had now walked up to the truck and was snapping pictures of the license plates, with a disposable camera. You're gonna want to stop that, I said. That's classified cargo. You can't take photos. He smirked. I'll send them to the board. Let them decide. And then, he locked the gate. A rusted chain and padlock. Right through the posts. That's when I made another call. This time. Not to Karen. This time. To Sergeant Elena Ramirez, National Guard liaison. And the last person anyone in an HOA vest wanted to mess with. Sergeant, I said. We've got a blockade. By the time I ended the call with Sergeant Ramirez, Chadwick had his chest puffed out like he was posing for a local newspaper headline. HOA hero saves neighborhood from military invasion. The man was actually proud of himself. He paced back and forth in front of the locked gate, mumbling into his walkie-talkie like he was coordinating an FBI sting. Brett, still in the cab of the lead truck, radioed again. "Boss. Is this guy serious?" "Oh. He's serious," I replied, eyes locked on Chadwick, who was now crouching down to scribble something into a spiral notebook. But that's the problem. A few of the residents had started to peek out their windows, coffee mugs in hand. One guy across the street had already pulled out his phone and was recording. I couldn't blame him. The sight of a 20-ton federal supply truck being blocked by a man with a reflective vest and a clip-on tie? That wasn't something you saw every day in Sierra Pines. Then came the hum of engines. Low. Powerful. Not HOA issue sedans. Something bigger. A matte black SUV rolled up. Silent and authoritative, with government plates gleaming under the rising sun. Another vehicle followed, dark gray. Unmarked. Windows tinted like secrets. They parked in tandem, flanking the convoy like chess pieces on the move. Chadwick's face twitched. Out stepped two men. Suits. Sunglasses. Earpieces, the full federal package. One of them, a broad-shouldered guy with a jawline you could file steel on, approached Chadwick without hesitation. "Sir," he said, flipping open a badge with a glint of silver and blue. "Agent Stone. Department of Defense Logistics Oversight." Chadwick swallowed so hard I heard it. "You are currently obstructing a federally authorized delivery route," the agent continued, voice calm but sharp. "You will unlock this gate immediately, or you will be detained under Title 18, Section 138, Interference with Federal Operations." Wait, Chadwick stammered, backing up a step. "You guys are real?" Agent Stone didn't answer, just stared. I thought this was just, a misunderstanding. A community regulation. "Unlock the gate now." Chadwick fumbled with his keyring like it was suddenly booby-trapped. It took him 3 tries to get the padlock undone. As the chain hit the pavement with a clank, Brett leaned out and muttered, "Showtime." The convoy rolled forward slowly, the massive trucks humming like thunderclouds. I stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching the tide turn in real time. And then I saw her. Karen Dubrow, HOA president, reigning queen of suburban control. She was standing at her second-floor window, holding a pair of binoculars with both hands like she was spotting incoming enemy troops. Her mouth hung slightly open, her brows pinched together in disbelief. I gave her a little wave. She slammed the curtains shut like I'd fired a lawsuit through the glass. Behind me, Chadwick stood still, blinking like someone had just pulled a plug on his brain. Agent Stone turned to him and spoke without emotion. "You are now documented in violation. Footage and reports will be submitted for review. Further interference will trigger federal escalation." Brett, ever the opportunist, had already posted the dashcam video. Title: HOA security guy tries to stop National Guard, gets owned by feds. The video hit Reddit within minutes, landing on the r/public freakout subreddit. It spread faster than HOA violation notices after a holiday. In just 6 hours, it had over 800,000 views. The comments were brutal. "This man really said no entry to the US military with a piece of laminated paper." Karen must have unlocked a new level of HOA madness. "Bro thought he was Captain America but forgot the shield and the brain." Back at our warehouse, the team was practically high-fiving each other. But I wasn't celebrating yet. This wasn't just a moment. This was a spark, because what Chadwick and Karen didn't realize was that this one blockade had opened the door for something much bigger. This wasn't about one delivery anymore. They hadn't just blocked a truck. They'd challenged the entire federal supply chain. And I wasn't the only one watching now. You'd think that after being steamrolled, figuratively, by federal agents, a normal HOA president would back down, issue a weak apology, And maybe blame it all on a miscommunication. Not Karen Dubrow. 2 days after the gate incident went viral, I drove past the Sierra Pines entrance to drop off some paperwork and nearly swerved off the road. They'd installed cameras, 3 of them, crooked, cheap, and mounted with what looked like duct tape and wishful thinking. One was aimed directly at the clouds. Another pointed into a hedge. The third was angled at the sidewalk but kept spinning wildly every time the wind blew. Still, Karen stood beneath them like she'd just built the NSA. Clipboard in hand. High ponytail bouncing with every step. She barked orders at a guy in cargo shorts holding a stepladder. Beside her were her newly promoted security captains residents Greg and Dennis. Greg was a retired dentist known for yelling at kids who bounced basketballs after 7 p.m. Dennis was, well, no one really knew what Dennis did. But he once tried to organize a neighborhood militia because someone left dog poop on his lawn. They now wore matching orange vests with duct-taped HOA watch logos and carried walkie-talkies that squawked static more than speech. But it didn't stop there. The very next day, my driver Luis radioed in, confused. "Boss, we've got some guys standing at the cul-de-sac entrance waving us down. Orange vests. Clipboard. Cones. Looks like they're trying to do a vehicle checkpoint." A checkpoint in a suburb. I told him not to engage. Just record everything. By the time I got there, Greg was standing in the middle of the road like a dollar store traffic cop. Clipboard raised like it was a badge. "Sir," he said, approaching Luis's truck, "we'll need you to open the rear compartment for inspection." Luis just held up his phone. Camera rolling. Greg didn't blink. "We're authorized under Emergency HOA Resolution 19.2c. All industrial vehicles are subject to review." That's when I stepped in. "Greg, unless your clipboard ends in gov. That's not happening." He blinked. "We're protecting the neighborhood." I pointed at the National Guard seal on the side of the truck. "From sealed humanitarian shipments? You know that's a felony. Right?" His face paled. "We're just following protocol." "Yeah? Whose protocol? Karen's?" That was enough. I didn't need to raise my voice. Luis had already sent the video to my National Guard liaison. Less than 45 minutes later, Sergeant Ramirez arrived in an unmarked military SUV. Crisp uniform. Expression unreadable. Greg, realizing the gravity of the moment, tried to pretend he was just taking a walk. He slipped off his vest and started doing fake stretches on the sidewalk like he was prepping for a 5K. "Sir," Ramirez said, approaching him, "we've confirmed unauthorized civilian attempts to interfere with logistical supply chains. This is now part of a federal review." Greg's stretching stopped mid-lunge. I didn't mean any harm. That's not how interference works." Just then, Chadwick pulled up in a golf cart. Yes, a golf cart, waving a laminated official HOA security badge. He stepped out, puffed up his chest, and declared, "You can't just barge in here like this. We have jurisdiction." Ramirez turned slowly. "You're impersonating regulatory enforcement. That's a federal crime." Chadwick blinked, then blinked again. "I'm not impersonating. I am enforcement," he said, holding out his badge like it meant something. She calmly reached into her coat and pulled out a thick folder, stamped with the seal of the Department of Defense. "This is a formal cease and desist. If you or anyone else under the HOA attempts to obstruct, surveil, or inspect federal supply lines again, legal action will follow. You have one warning. This is it." Chadwick tried to speak, but the words never made it out. Instead, he just turned around and slowly walked back to his golf cart like a shamed cartoon villain. But the best part? That entire moment, Greg's fake jog, Chadwick's badge, Ramirez's mic drop, was caught on camera. And Brett uploaded it. Read it again. This time the title was, HOA Chat Tries to Arrest a Soldier, gets schooled by a real one. Another 500,000 views in a day. The comment section, ruthless. Next up, Karen declares HOA independence and drafts a constitution. HOA checkpoints? Bro, this isn't Fallout New Vegas. But the real damage came later that evening. Karen sent out a neighborhood-wide bulletin, complete with red headers and Comic Sans bold text, declaring that my company was transporting unknown and potentially hazardous materials through a peaceful community. She warned that children and pets may be at risk. And just like that, she crossed the line from annoying to defamatory. If you thought HOA madness had peaked at fake checkpoints and duct-taped cameras, oh buddy, Karen was just warming up. After being publicly humiliated twice, once by the feds and once by her own security force being walked off the street like rogue mall cops, she went nuclear. And by nuclear, I mean she sat in her pink-walled home office, surrounded by herbal tea and rage, and started drafting official letters to everyone. A few days later, I got a call from my contact at the Department of Defense Logistics Oversight. "You're not going to believe this," Agent Keller said, clearly amused. "We received a typed letter, printed, not emailed, claiming you were constructing a covert military base disguised as a logistics warehouse in Sierra Pines." I laughed. "He didn't." She sent it to us, the governor's office. And, wait for it, a United States senator. No signature. He added. But it was scented. I already knew. That was Karen's signature move. Spray your lies with lavender, and maybe people will believe them. But she wasn't done. According to Agent Lim, who joined the call, Karen had even made up a fake operation name, Project Backdoor Bayonet. "I don't even know what that means," Keller said. "It sounds like something rejected from a Tom Clancy novel." It would have been hilarious if it didn't trigger an actual response. See, when you start throwing around terms like covert ops and civilian militarization, things happen. Real things. Legal things. Within 48 hours, the HOA was flagged for federal review under emergency coordination protocols. Not because they were dangerous, but because Karen was now on record trying to sabotage federal infrastructure through disinformation. Sierra Pines was officially under watch. But wait, Karen still wasn't done embarrassing herself. At the next emergency HOA meeting, which was conveniently held in the gymnasium/rec room, surrounded by folding chairs and dusty yoga mats, Karen stormed to the front and slammed her clipboard on the plastic podium. "We're being infiltrated," she declared to a room of confused retirees and dog walkers. "This is no longer about landscaping violations. This is about sovereignty." I watched the live stream later, because of course Dennis filmed it on Facebook Live like it was a hostage situation. Karen outlined her new plan. She was going to rezone the neighborhood. Her logic? If Sierra Pines was reclassified from mixed use to pure residential under city ordinance, then my trucks would no longer be legally permitted to enter. She called it defensive bureaucracy. Yes. Seriously. Then she proposed installing tire spike barriers at the gate. "I'm not suggesting aggression," she clarified. "Just deterrence." Someone in the audience actually raised their hand and asked, "Isn't that illegal?" Karen waved the question away like it was a gnat. "If we call them landscape enhancements, we're fine." It was like watching a live performance of HOA, the musical, featuring conspiracy, glitter pens, and zero self-awareness. But the kicker? That entire meeting, audio, video, Karen's unhinged defensive bureaucracy speech, it all landed on my desk. Someone, bless their anonymous heart, slipped a USB drive into the mailbox at my warehouse labeled, HOA Lunacy, for your records. Inside, crystal clear footage. Every reckless statement. Every delusional motion past. Every violation of law and logic. I didn't even have to do anything shady. I just handed it over to the same federal contacts who'd already had their eyebrows raised. 3 days later, the city zoning office showed up, not with enforcement, yet, but with questions. They asked to see my property. I gladly invited them in. They inspected the trucks, tested the soil, reviewed drainage reports, and even toured my covert base, which was really just a well-organized gym and a fridge full of energy drinks. They found nothing. No violations. No secret bunkers. No underground missile silos. Karen's zoning proposal was rejected on the spot. Even better, the city official left me with a smile and a casual parting comment, honestly, this place is cleaner than our own lot. And that lady? She sent in her rezoning request using Comic Sans. I almost framed that quote. And then came the best moment of the week. Greg, the ex-dentist turned clipboard commando, showed up at my loading dock. He had a six-pack of root beer, a nervous smile, and a note. Alternate entry routes, he mumbled, handing me a sketched map of Sierra Pines with side access points marked in highlighter. In case she pulls anything else. I raised an eyebrow. I was wrong, he admitted. We all were. But this is too far. He walked off, quietly, like a man returning to reality. And for the first time since all this started, I realized something. Karen wasn't just losing control. She was starting to lose the people who once feared her. And in a neighborhood run on intimidation and fines, that's fatal. The morning of the emergency HOA election felt like something out of a courtroom drama, except the lawyers were in sandals and the jury had HOA fines stacked in their mailboxes. For the first time since I moved operations through Sierra Pines, the neighborhood wasn't glaring at my trucks. They were glaring at Karen. After weeks of unhinged newsletters, zoning threats, checkpoint fiascos, and full-blown federal embarrassment, the court of public opinion had reached its verdict. And that verdict was, enough is enough. The clubhouse, Civic Assembly Hall, as Karen renamed it during her reign, was packed to the walls. Retirees, parents, vets, dog walkers, even Greg with his peace-offering root beer, everyone was there. No orange vests, no binoculars. Just quiet fury and clipboards shaking in sweaty hands. Karen sat at the head table like she was still in charge, her rhinestone pen gleaming under the overhead lights. But her power was an illusion now, like a cardboard crown at a dethroned parade. This is a witch hunt, she snapped into the mic. I've dedicated my life to this community. And this is the thanks I get? Someone near the back whispered. You dedicated your life to being a traffic cop with delusions. The room chuckled. That's when Lorraine stepped up, a retired school principal. Calm, clear-eyed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make threats. She just walked up to the podium and said, our community deserves peace, not paranoia. Order, not obsession. Kindness, not control. Then she stepped aside. No dramatic speeches. Just dignity. The votes were cast. Secret ballots. Quick count. The result, Karen was out by a landslide. Her two remaining loyalists, Chadwick and Dennis, were also booted. Dennis left quietly. Chadwick tried to argue election irregularities before tripping over a folding chair on his way out. It wasn't graceful. Karen didn't say a word. Just stood up, clipboard trembling in her hand, and stormed out the front doors. Her high heels clacked furiously on the sidewalk until she hit the parking lot, where her Lexus peeled away like a cartoon villain retreating to a lair. And just like that, her reign ended, not with a bang, but with the squeal of tires and the rustle of torn yard signs in the wind. That evening, something strange happened. I walked out of the warehouse to see a group of kids drawing chalk tanks and helicopters on the pavement. One of them turned and yelled, "That's your truck. You're the guy from the video." I smiled. I didn't need to say anything. But later that week, I got a call from Sergeant Ramirez. "Got a few people who want to thank you," she said. "You free Friday night?" I assumed it was just another logistics meeting. It wasn't. When I arrived at the local armory, there was a low-key appreciation dinner underway, just folding tables, barbecue, a cooler of drinks, and a lot of handshakes. I thought I'd just be a background guest. But then Ramirez stood up and tapped a spoon on a glass. "We've dealt with weather, supply shortages, equipment failures. But we've never had to reroute around a pink-scented smear campaign. The room laughed. She turned to me and held up a small black plaque, etched in silver, in recognition of your resilience, professionalism, and continued operational support under civilian interference. We thank you. There it was. A literal medal for surviving HOA chaos. Someone in the back shouted. They wanted to call it the Karen Defense Ribbon. Legal shot it down. Ramirez added with a smirk. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. Back in Sierra Pines, things started to heal. Lorraine and the new board reversed Karen's wild policies, shut down the emergency hotline, and removed the crooked surveillance cameras. Residents waved again. Kids rode bikes freely. Someone even planted a tree in honor of common sense. And me, I kept delivering. Same manifest. Same drivers. No drama. But on the back of our final truck, we'd painted a new sign. Supply line strong, powered by logic, not clipboards. People clapped when they saw it. Some even saluted. I wasn't looking for applause, but after everything, it felt good. Greg dropped by again with donuts. Luis got a thank you card from a neighbor's kid. Brett got offered a date from someone who saw him in the viral video and thought his tactical beard was hot. And me, I just kept driving. Until one afternoon, a passing jogger nodded and said, "Hey, you're the guy who took down the HOA queen, right?" I shrugged. Nah. I just drove the truck. The clipboard took care of itself. Then I hit the gas, off to the next neighborhood, knowing that whatever mess awaited, no fake badge, no HOA Karen, and no laminated threat would ever stop the supply line again.